This film is a journey made by a group of young disabled people. It's been a learning journey, a journey of discovery, a search for answers and inspiration, an exploration of good and bad, a chance to show disability for what it really is, just another part of normal life. So join us now as we explore, with the help of a few famous friends, what disability means to us.
I started in local radio in the early 1970s, 1971. I decided I needed to do some mainstream stuff, in other words in network radio, and I started to work for In Touch in 1974, and quite soon, being rather pushy, I was presenting it. And then in 1995 I got the job as the BBC's Disability Affairs correspondent, and from that all sorts of other things have sprung, not necessarily to do with disability.
I was an actress for 7 years, and I'd done bits of telly here and there, but I'd never done any presenting before. And it was just an open audition that I went to that was at the BBC. And I was just very lucky. I happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, sport was always a big interest and influence for myself. Even as a kid, I wanted to play football. I played football at school. In goal, I was big into the Olympics. I watched the Olympics when I was about 11 years old, saw the Los Angeles Olympics, loved that. Watched TV, loved music, all the usual things of a teenager. And I suppose I also really wanted to, I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to go out there and people to know who I was.
Well, a lot of the time I moan because I don't get as much acting work as I want. And then I realised my non-disabled acting mates say to me, Matt, you work more than us. Because no actors get much work, to be honest. 90% of actors are out of work at any one time in this country. So the fact that I get disability work, although it annoys me sometimes because I'd like to just play the father or the bloke next door or whatever, I actually don't mind playing them. Because again, it brings the life of the drama of the life of a disabled person to the mainstream audience.
Winning my first gold at the Paralympics was amazing. For me, it was 400 metres, it was Barcelona, it was 92, it was my second Paralympic Games. But, I went in ranked number 1 in the world, but there's no, just because you've got that doesn't mean anything at all. It was a pretty tough race for me. But also that moment where you cross the finish line and lots of people cheer, it's such an exciting and thrilling moment.
I was elected in 1987, and of course we spent 10 years in opposition. A good chunk of those I was a front bench spokesman, first on local government, then health, then education, and then employment and education when Tony Blair became leader. And in 97 I was then given the job of Education and Employment Secretary. I had that for 4 years. I was Home Secretary for nearly 4 years, and I had a brief spell as Work and Pension Secretary as well.
Excuse me. Yes? I just wondered if you were, buying some rays.
3 plates and I had extra smooth touch. I'll have a word with one of the passengers and I'll try and get one of you in, okay?
We need both of us in, not just one of us.
Excuse me, we're about to move, please, because we need room for a wheelchair.
But I'll book these seats,
I'm
mate.
sorry, but we need more space for a wheelchair. Now we're from the Norfolk Coalition of Disabled People in Norfolk, David. Do you think it's good for young disabled people to actually go out and be able to share their views and put points forward?
Well, I think it's vital. I think it's a two-way process, isn't it? The more you're able to do that, the more connection you make with those who've got no experience of disability, who are often wary, sometimes downright frightened about what disability means. People are generally jumpy about difference and things that they don't understand or have not experienced. So firstly, that contact is vital. Secondly, getting messages across that we're all exactly the same. We're in it together. We may have a different challenge, but we're just normal human beings. And thirdly, that it's all our job to change the world for the better. So that you're doing it by raising issues and campaigning and making the voice of people with disabilities heard, but I think it's really important the message gets across that those you're talking with, those you're working with and having fun and leisure with have got a part to play as well, so that as well as living a normal life, we can change the world for the better.
I like to become doing DJing and work. I'd like to work in the theatre again.
Cool. What production would you like to work on?
Like the summer show I did before, I'd like to carry on, but instead of doing it through the summer, I'd like to work every night and do different shows, the shows that comes up.
What makes you really angry?
When people just say, well, she can't reach the top shelf, let me do it for her because she can't reach. And in my own way, if I take my time, I can reach.
When people treat you less equally because you're disabled, that's not nice, but you know, it's up to us to rise above it and be positive and say, well, actually, you can't treat me like that. I am an equal, and you have to, by law, by the way, agree with me. And if you don't like it, you know what you can do with that.
If you could, how would you change it?
Change what?
The balance.
If I had my way, the barriers that exist, which are still problems with public transport, problems with public building, access to leisure facilities, equal rights, all of those things, I would make harder in law. So the Disability Discrimination Act, although it's a good start, I would give it some sharp teeth rather than the soft gums it currently has. Because I think if we look at black history and gay history and women history, the rights for them only came after the laws were put in place. And it's going to be the same for us.
Do you consider yourself as disabled?
I do consider myself to be a disabled person and not a person with a disability, like the Americans say. And the reason is because my way of understanding the word disabled is a social context. So I'm disabled because I've got these arms, so the reason I'm disabled is because my arms make, for some reason, society treat me differently and other people treat me differently. So in a way, I am disabled. But that's not a bad thing. I'm proud to be disabled as well. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of my little arms, and I'm proud of my difference.
Did people used to give you a hard time because of your impairment in school or at work?
I've never been given a hard time at work because I'm a disabled person. Never, no. But at school, obviously, there was a little bit of bullying going on. You know, the thing about school kids is they all want to be the same, right? Everyone wants to be the same. No one wants to be the odd one out. So if they see someone that looks or behaves a bit differently, they're going to pick on them straight away, aren't they? Now, there are ways of combating that, as we all know. My way was to make friends with the toughest boy in school. It was a bit thick, and I helped him with his maths, and he went, no one touches math, all right? And that was the easy way out. But if you are having a hard time at school and you're a disabled person and you are being bullied or something, teachers, although they seem scary, are actually there to help. Other kids don't like it. You know, say to the other kids, this guy's giving me a hard time because I'm being bullied. It makes me feel like crap. I don't like it. Will you give me a hand to sort it out? And I don't mean beat them up, because violence isn't an answer to violence, but reason is. And so I think you have to have a strong heart and a strong resolve, but then let's face it, most disabled people have that anyway. We have to.
What makes you happy?
When I'm with my family and my friends and they see me for who I am and they see through my disability.
When I finish college, I want to become a radio presenter.
Do you think you'll be any good?
Well, I'd like to think so. I mean, I've got one good skill, and everybody will tell you in the group that I can talk. And I think that I'd like to, you know, it's something I'm good at and it's something I could do, and I'd like to put this into practice, and it's something I've been interested in now for about 10 years, so I really hope so, yeah.
I don't think there is enough disabled people in the media, no, because we're technically 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 people in Britain, and that ratio is not reflected in the media. It's coming, there's more and more, and we need to keep pushing. People like yourselves, you know, who are starting out in the media game, make yourselves professional, get the skills, because you've got the rights now, you've got the legal rights, get the skills. They can't say, no, you can't have the job because you're disabled. They could only probably say, you can't have the job because you're not good enough. So get good enough, and we'll change that.
What do you like talking about most, Edward?
What do I like talking about most? I enjoy talking about sport. I'm a Norwich fan. Talk about kind of football or anything. I enjoy a discussion about music as well.
What's your favourite music?
My favourite music is 80s music and 90s music. Quite like things like Elton John, the Commodores, old fashioned, but who cares? I like it. It's what I've been brought up on.
What makes you angry?
When non-disabled people are so ignorant of disability that they get to a point where they just believe that we're all like benefit grabbing scoundrels and that we don't have issues of our own and that we aren't real people. When people become so kind of ignorant of disability that they really become very prejudiced and see us as lower forms of kind of life, almost.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but how do you feel that you were accepted into the job? Were you integrated into the group of people, or was it a bit difficult?
Well, as I was indicating, Edward, the higher you get, the more people just take it for granted that you can do it, and the support systems are in place. When I first got into Parliament, there was a lot of scepticism, and people weren't upfront about this. There was a lot of scepticism. Can a blind man be a member of Parliament? Can he do the constituency work? In fact, I remember when I was first standing for the council, someone asked me what I'd do if Mrs. Bloggs had a blocked drain. I said, well, I wouldn't be putting my arm down it, that's for sure. I'd do what anybody else would do. I'd ring the council and get someone around to fix it if they were a tenant. So, there have been times when people have asked the question, can it be done? And the only way of dealing with that was to do it. I mean, each time you were proving the sceptics wrong, each time you were proving yourself right, and sometimes it was a knife edge as to whether you thought you were going to pull it off. And so building confidence without being over arrogant is difficult, and sometimes you were on the wrong side of that. Sometimes you're a bit belligerent when you didn't really intend to be.
Yes, there was a lot of negativity, yes, there was a lot of doubt. Yeah, you do come up against, certainly, some of the big producers who just aren't open to it at all. And I very much see my job, as an actor or as a presenter, but that's not just the job. The entire job is actually getting seen by these people and changing their mind, or just kind of showing them a different perspective so that then they perhaps see things in a different way and go, okay, well, yeah, so she had something that we liked, so perhaps it could work for us, There
was an issue, wasn't there, with the BBC sports personality where they wouldn't allow you up on the stage because of the access. Do you think that showed up? I mean, was it live television?
It was the 2000 BBC Sports Personality Awards, and it was quite weird because I remember when they were sort of launching this kind of the show, and I was on the clips for the show, and it's like, wow, I'm on the telly. And then I made it into the top 6, which was the shortlist, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I didn't expect to come third. And then on the night, I've been given the Helen Rollison Award, which I've had quite mixed views on, because Helen Rollison was an amazing woman, sports presenter, who did so much to change the Paralympic movement, and she was really clear, we're going to show it sport and nothing else. And then I wasn't that comfortable getting the award, because it was a bit about, when it was read out, it was all about the adversity that I dealt with. And I grew up in a middle class family, and I went to university, and I didn't have that much adversity because I had stroppy parents. And I don't like that kind of overcoming adversity thing, because for me, I've not had to deal with it. There's lots of disabled people who do have rubbish things in their life they've had to deal with, but I was sort of protected from a lot of that. So I kind of thought, oh right, they've given me that because I'm not going to get anything else. And then when it was sort of announced that I'd come in third, and I looked and there was no ramp, and it was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. And Alan Shearer was presenting the award, and I actually felt really sorry for him, because it was a big studio and the lights were all on the stage, and there weren't any lights on the audience, and there's about 20 wheelchair users, and you could see him sort of going, where is she? Because you couldn't see our faces. Yeah. And I was kind of stuck on the second row behind other people. And there was sort of this kind of silence. And I didn't think too much of it because I came off the stage and gave it to me. I was like, oh, thanks. And you know, as an athlete, it was amazing to come third. And then it was only afterwards that it all kind of kicked off where, Matt Pinson came up to me and said, I kind of just presumed you knew that you'd got the award and you didn't want to go on the stage. And Kelly Holmes came up to me and said, I was going to kind of run down and pick you up and put you on the stage. And she was sitting next to Sally Gunnell, and she was like, Sal, right, come on. But Sally was pregnant, and she was like, I can't lift anybody. You know? So it was all this sort of stuff, and people didn't know what to do and didn't know what to say. And then we realised that it wasn't great when a few people from the BBC came up and said, ooh, ooh. And it wasn't maliciously done, but I think it was an oversight.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where we sat down with the BBC that night and said, right, okay, how can we change? Because it would have been really easy to come out and, be abusive about the BBC, but they were actually very good. They gave us a lot of TV coverage, they still do, very supportive of the Paralympic movement. And actually what they did, they went away and said, right, okay, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? And it might not be perfect, but I think they've looked at how disabled people contribute, disabled people on shows, just general, they've looked at stuff in a different way. And for me, that was the right way to do it. It wasn't, because to be honest, the media for 2 days afterwards will go, oh, that's absolutely dreadful, and then forget about it. So it's much better to find a way to work with them to make sure it doesn't happen again, than sort of berate them for what they did.
I'm a massive sports fan. Love my football. Play for my wheelchair football club, Norwich City Power Wheelchair Football Club. I support Norwich City as well. I'm into all my computers, and Xbox and stuff like that, so I'm just the same as any other normal teenager really. I'd like to be a teacher, maybe in sport, or a coach. That's like probably one thing I really want to do. So hopefully I'll be there one day.
It's been very clear that the I don't know what the right word is, whether it's the fact that people know me. I don't use the word celebrity, but using the stuff that I've done as an athlete to kind of actually try and help other people. And it's not, I get really irritated by especially non-disabled people who say, I'm going to give a voice to disabled people. Actually, no, disabled people can speak up for themselves. But I think some of the role I've got is to actually just say, look at how that person's being treated, and actually try and highlight some of those issues to say, do you know what, this is not right. It's not right. Disabled people have so much to offer, and I kind of think of society as sort of a continuum, and everyone is somewhere on it. And disabled people, have the right to work and pay taxes and contribute, and just everyone needs to be somewhere on that and treated as an individual, not as this one homogenous group.
About disability and things like that, Peter, because of your role and because of your position, do you think you've sort of changed the image of disability at all?
It's really very hard for me to know. I mean, no, not personally, I don't think. I mean, I've been very lucky in the sense that I've been around at a time when it was changing anyway, and we've reflected the changes that have been taking place. I mean, I started in the early 70s, and that's really when the disability movement began in a big way. Not perhaps so much blindness, actually, but blind people are the kind of, I always think, that in some funny way, that blind people are kind of the aristocrats of the disability movement, not because they're any better than anyone else, but because in many ways they started self-determination and militancy and so forth. I mean, it was often in the sheltered workshops in the 19th century and early 20th century that blind people were saying, we're not satisfied with the money we're getting. There were blind people who went on the Jarrow marches in the late 20s and early 30s. So blind people, and they've often been fighting, they unionised their workforce. So they had often been fighting a lot of these battles. And so I don't, as I say, it was in the 70s that the movement really caught on to that generally, the disability movement caught on to it generally. And I think I've just been lucky enough to be around to report it. So I don't think I've changed it. I mean, I don't think it does any harm to see a blind person occasionally doing a piece for the news. I think that all helps. And, I do quite a lot of items which perhaps make people think about things, but only in terms, so a lot of other people have been involved in the same thing, I think.
I'd actually go so far as to say my disability has helped make my acting career, because I would probably be less employed if I wasn't disabled, because I get asked to do roles, disability roles, because they're now coming in, and people ask me if they know they want me. If I was non-disabled, that might not happen. I might never get any work.
It's funny because, yeah, obviously I have, it has been hard and I have faced a lot of barriers, but sometimes I've also felt that my disability can work to my advantage, particularly in a casting situation. If they're looking for an actor, or, if they're looking to cast a character with one hand, then I stand a pretty good chance of getting seen for that audition.
Are there any celebrities with disabilities? I mean, I don't know. I hate that word celebrity as well, and I don't know if they are, or if I suppose maybe in one way you could be talking about whether they're given as much profile or whether they get as much time on airtime on the TV, and probably not, because you don't see that many. I suppose a lot of people may consider me as a celebrity. And I suppose it's myself and maybe Dame Tanni Thompson are the only two really visible people with disabilities that you'll see on the TV. And whereas I suppose there are millions, loads and loads of disabled people out there who could be celebrities or who could be role models who should be on TV, like yourselves, for instance. Yeah. So yeah, no, that should change, definitely.
Cool. Okay, have we got the Manchester studio? Okay, well, we're doing a quick interview, and just give me a go. Good evening, welcome to In Touch. On tonight's programme, we're going to be dealing with the problem of sheltered workshops, and in our Manchester studio I've got Mr. John Smith, who's going to be talking about one of the latest problems and the fact that they may have to close.
What about when you sort of interview people on the radio? How do you think they sort of respond to you when they meet you?
It's an interesting question, and I actually think in many ways it helps them, because I think people worry about being interviewed. It's a rather stressful thing for people who don't do it all the time. And I always used to find that when they came to see me, they were a bit startled quite often. If we hadn't told them that I couldn't see, they were a bit surprised. Or indeed, if I went to their homes to interview them, if it was an outside report, they were surprised. And they were so busy worrying about me and about where I would put the tape recorder and where I'd put my coat and whether I knew what to know and whether I wanted to dress. They'd fuss around me, the way people do about blindness. And before they knew where they were halfway through the interview. So I always feel that because it's one of those things where they think... See, normally what happens is some smart ass comes down and looks very, with his sharp suit and so forth, and looks like that they're perhaps it's someone they know, even it's a famous face, and it's a very awe-inspiring thing. And then in my case, you get this blind guy, and they think it's my job to help, and I think that relaxes people. And I used to find the same thing in studios as well, because I think they'd come in, and if they didn't know I was blind, they took one look and think, oh God, he's blind. And while they're worrying about that, you're into the interview, cutting to the chase.
I think being disabled has given me lots of different things. I think it's given me the chance to have lots of different experiences, both very positively and also very negatively. And I think you learn from your experience. And I think some of the way that I've been treated in a very discriminatory way has made me stronger and made me tougher. But also it's hard to split me being a disabled person from my own personality. And I think a lot of journalists have said to me, well, if you hadn't have been a wheelchair user, would you have been an athlete? And I'm like, I don't know, but I think I would. I might not have been a runner, but I think I would have been a sporty person, because I don't think my own sort of inbuilt personality would have been too much different. And that's kind of quite an interesting debate, really, because people will have said to me, oh, well, hasn't that, being in a chair made you tougher and stronger? Well, no, actually, if I look at my mum and dad, I'm kind of pretty much a combination of them. And my sister is as well. So I think how I am is how I would have been if I'd been able to walk. Whether I would have gone on and achieved the things I did, because I think a big part of my career, certainly early on, was people telling me I couldn't do things, and me just being stubborn and awkward and going, no, I will show you I can do it. And maybe if I hadn't have been in a wheelchair, if I hadn't have, been at the end of some of that discrimination, I might not have kind of forced my way through. But I just being in chairs, that's it. It'll never change. If I had £1 for everyone who said to me, do you wish you could walk? Well, not really. Because for me, what would walking give me that I don't have already? It'd be a bit easier when it's raining, and I could probably use the tube a bit more. But actually, it wouldn't give me anything in my life that I don't, currently have.
The only barriers or boundaries that I've had to cross are the ones that other people have set for me. Personally, when I was growing up, I felt I could do anything. I had a dream when I was watching TV. I thought, whatever I saw, if I saw someone being a top athlete, if I saw someone being a movie star, I never felt that because of my disability, I wouldn't be able to do it. I just felt anything is possible. I think that's how everyone should think. That you might have to work a little bit harder, you might have to do things a little bit differently to other people, but ultimately, anything is possible. I'm really getting behind the youth forum. They're giving disabled people a voice. They're giving young people a voice. Really cool. Gave me a grilling over here and didn't allow me to eat my bacon sandwich. What's that all about?
I just want to say a massive hello and thank you for having me in this film. I think it's really important, very positive and really brilliant, the work that you're all doing. And keep doing it and keep having fun and thanks.
Delighted to be given the chance to talk to you. I've never really felt that I had the right to kind of set myself up as an example. I have to be honest, I've done this for purely selfish reasons. I did it because I loved broadcasting, I still love broadcasting, and if there's been a spin-off for disabled people as a result of it, then I'm delighted, but I always get slightly embarrassed when people say you've done this and you've changed things. I didn't set out to change things. I set out to make programs. But the world depends, and things will improve on the basis of lots of people in lots of different places, like yourselves, getting together and trying to make it better.
I've been a wheelchair user since I was 7, and one of the most important things I had in my life was positive people around me. And if there's one message I could give, it's to young people to say, be positive about your impairment. You will experience discrimination, you will experience difficult times. However, it's about belief in yourself and keeping going and getting the right education. And I think the best piece of advice my parents ever gave me was if someone had a problem with me being in a wheelchair, it was their problem, not mine.
I think what you're doing is fantastic. We need a lot more of this kind of thing. Coalitions, arts, disabled people, youth, training, the future, success. Bring it on!